Good evening, ACS families. My name is Constance Sershin, and I'm one of the Social and Transition Specialists with Arlington Community Schools. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for an important conversation about fostering resilience in our children. I'm the parent of two, and like many of you, we find ourselves in this unfamiliar and unique set of circumstances of parenting while navigating a global pandemic. Not only are we busy marking off school supply lists or memorizing bus numbers with our little ones and ensuring that our older ones have completed any of their required summer reading or assignments, but now we're also tasked with learning how to best support their social emotional needs and provide them with a sense of security, as well as a safe place to explore the disruption and losses that COVID-19 has brought into our lives and the ripple effects that it's had on even the simplest familiar routines of things like going to the grocery store or going to school. As parents, though, we are uniquely positioned to be the calm in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, and our presenter this evening will offer practical tips to guide us along the way. During the presentation, we politely request that you keep your audio on mute and place all questions and comments in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to address those along the way. In a few moments, you'll hear from our presenter, Ms. Terricka Hardy. She's a subject matter expert in resilience and self-care. She's a licensed clinical social worker and certified compassion fatigue professional. She's a successful owner of a consulting firm and has trained numerous organizations, professionals, and community groups in topics like ethics, mental health, professional impairment, burnout, resilience, and self-care. As the mother of a school-age child herself, she developed this presentation from the blended perspectives of a parent and a professional. I'm very happy to present to you this evening our distinguished speaker, Ms. Terricka Hardy.
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome. You could be any place right now. It's the evening. Many of you've been to work because we're parents, right? And we juggle several roles at one time. But you have chosen to spend just a few moments with me. And I am so honored and delighted that you have chosen to do that, to learn about how we can support and build resilience in our children, right? As Constance stated, I am a mother. I'm a mother of one school-age child and a mother of a preschool-age child. So the Hardy home, I tell you, it's a lot of energy going on at the Hardy home. And I'm sure there's a lot of energy, a lot of questions, a lot of emotions that are actually going on in your home as well. I'm excited to share with you some information just about how we as parents, we can foster and build resilience in our children. And we'll even talk about how we can promote self-care in our own lives as parents as well. Again, as Constance stated, I am a licensed clinical social worker and I'm a trainer. I really have committed much of my professional career to researching and learning how to build resilience in individuals and in children. And what I understand is that as parents, we really exude and we are role models for our children, right? So before I get started on what we'll discuss today, I just want to invite you just for a moment, just want to invite you just to breathe, okay? To breathe for a moment. How many of you know that that oftentimes we could be sitting here, we could sit in a seat, our bodies can be in one place and our minds can actually be in another place, right? Have you ever drove somewhere and you've got to your destination and you realize you're like, oh my goodness, when did I get here? How did I get here? It's because you wasn't necessarily being present. So just for a few moments, I just ask that you just take a deep breath. The distractions and the concerns that you had, the text messages that you received leading up to this workshop, trust me, those concerns, those questions, those individuals, they are going to be there when we end this workshop, right? But I want you to focus in for just a moment, right? So we can understand how to build resilience in our children. So I'm going to advance to the next slide. You know, I know that there's a lot of uncertainties right now, right? We're in the midst of a pandemic, and I
Ms.
like to say we're
Hardy,
in,
we
yes.
don't have your screen sharing yet. Do you want to put that up, please?
Yeah, I'm sharing. Okay, I'll try it one more time. Let me see. Okay.
And it could be that mine, let's see.
Let's see. Can you see it now?
It's coming. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. You can see, okay, great. You know, I know that there's a lot of uncertainties right now, you know, and I like to say that we are in the midst of more than one pandemic, right? There's, you know, there's a mental health and a mental wellness, you know, pandemic and concern there. But I want you to know, as parents, I want you to know that you are empowered to help partner with your children, with your village, and who belongs in your village, right? Parents and teachers, teachers and other family members, they belong in your village, right? It takes a village to help foster and rear up resilient children. But I want to know that you are empowered, right? Do you realize that you are your child's first teacher? Right? Your children, they learned how to speak. They learned about facial expression. They learned various things and are still learning from you. And nobody can take that from you. Nobody can take your place and take that from you. So as parents, I do want you to understand that although the virtual business is happening, there's some in-person going on, that the situation going on with the in-person classrooms, I want you to know that you have what it takes to help your child and to partner with your village to get through this, right? So just understand that as we move forward. So when we talk about resilience, I want to kind of set the record straight on what resilience actually is. And when we talk about resilience, it's really about how we adapt and respond to challenges and adversity. Okay, and I know that there's a lot of schools of thoughts out there about resilience, but for the sake of this particular presentation and workshop, we're going to look at how do we adapt, how do we respond to adversity. And so when we talk about resilience, we have to understand, and from my experience, you know, the greatest forms of resilience are built in challenging times, right? Moms and dads, they are built in challenging times. And how many of you know that this is a direct definition of challenging times that we're in during this pandemic? So what do I mean? Why would I share that with you? I want you to understand that this is a great opportunity to shift your focus on the things that you can't control. We can't control if Lysol, come on, parents, we cannot control if Lysol is on the shelf. We cannot control if Clorox is on the shelf. We can't even control if someone else in the store other than ourselves have on a mask, or what we can't control if they practice distancing guidelines, right? But we can control what we can control ourselves, right? And so I want us to lean into that fact. And I want us to shift our focus from things that we can't control, the uncertainties that we cannot control, and begin to shift our focus and lean in to resilience, right? So when we talk about building resilience in our children, there's two important factors here that I want to make sure that we hone in on, and this is where we partner with you, or you partner with your village to make this happen. Children need, and really adults need, in order to build resilience, they need supportive relationships and nurturing environments. Say that with me: supportive relationships and nurturing environments. That is where the strongest resilience is built, right? And, you know, we have an opportunity now to build that supportive relationship with our children. I know we have relationships with them, but now we have an opportunity to role model. We have an opportunity to partner with our children even more as we really try to be there for them during this pandemic. And so we're going to talk about different tactics and ways to build supportive relationships with our children, and how we can foster a nurturing relationship. But as we move forward, what I want you to know, because let's be honest, there's going to be throughout the school year, throughout every school year, but now the times are a bit more challenging. But just know that we are going to have some periods to where the children are frustrated and we as parents are frustrated as well. That is a part of being human, right? But as a parent, I want you to challenge you to understand that all behavior is a form of communication, especially when we are talking about children. The difference between children and adults is something that we call executive functioning in the therapy world, right? And executive functioning is it's that part of the brain. It's the last, it's the last part of the brain that generally develops, right? So it develops in adulthood. And executive functioning helps us as adults to better self-regulate, to better calm ourselves down when we are stressed, right? So our children, they lack that executive functioning. So they don't have the skills that we have as adults to calm down as quickly as we do. So what they are relying on us as adults to do is to model that for them so that they can learn, right? Remember, you are their first teacher. Remember, you are their first role model. And so all behavior is a form of communication. If a child is not responding to what you're asking them to do, it's a form of communication. And what do we do as adults when there's miscommunication? We probe and we try to find out in the best way that we can the reason and the root of that, we really try to find out the root of the communication. We try to better understand that individual when miscommunication happened. And so when your child at home is exhibiting some behaviors that are not common, generally coming from your child, because you're going to get that because this is a different type of time that we're in, just understand that that is your child's way of trying to communicate with you. Have you ever heard of, I know for me, my children, especially my preschool child, have you ever heard of, individuals say, she acts like that around her mom or her dad, but she doesn't necessarily act like that around strangers. Generally, that form of communication, although, your child may throw what's called a tantrum, or, they may have down at that moment, your child will go through the school day all day and not have a meltdown, and you pick them up and they begin to have a meltdown in the car on the way home, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, I'm just getting off from work, what's going on? Your child probably waited until they got in the car, till they got in a safe space with a safe adult to decide to have a meltdown, right? And we know that children's meltdowns, they look different from us. So just understand that behavior is your child's way of communicating. So as we move forward with this, in terms of building supportive relationships, let's talk about how we can prepare our children and talk to them about the COVID-19 and school, right? Number one, we want to try to remain calm, because what we're doing, we are trying to model, composure. We're trying to model self-regulation to our children. We explain to them questions that they have in age-appropriate language. That's especially important, especially for children that are going through puberty. Sometimes we can, as adults, we don't mean to, but children, they can have adult features. They can even think, and they're very intelligent in many aspects as adults. And so sometimes we may use language that goes over their head. So we want to make sure that we are explaining to them in age-appropriate language. And we want to let the children guide us with questions. Their questions may not be the same questions that we have. I know, talking to my son, he's a school-age child, and we met his teacher earlier this week. My questions was about the distancing guidelines. My questions were very different from my child. You want to know what my son wanted to know? Are we still going to be able to play in recess? That's what he wanted to know. He is 6 years old. That's what he wanted to know. You see the difference between what the child wants to know and what we want to know. So in terms of this, as we are preparing them for the return to school, and we are, however you decide, virtually or in person, we want to let them lead. Elementary students, they need short and brief answers, right? But in middle school and high school, they're going to need more details, right? And they're going to need you to kind of combat and share with them, well, this is truth, and this may not be what's true, okay? But this is what we know now, and there's a lot of uncertainties here, and I understand that you may be frustrated, but we don't know for certain that this particular area or this particular information is true. We want to deal with the facts and the truth here. So again, and then high schoolers, a lot of them would like to, they really want you to be able to solicit their opinions and their thoughts. So just allowing them to and ask questions about decisions and what they would like to see happen. Of course, talk to them about hygiene and distancing guidelines, and practice wearing masks if that's needed. And then also for small children, generally they don't like to, a lot of small children, they don't prefer to wear masks. I know many of us probably may not be so excited about wearing them, but one of the things that you can do in trying to build that supportive relationship, one of the things you can do with your child is actually decorate and personalize the mask. Maybe your child or have one made with their favorite character or colors. And for the older children, they can decorate and personalize it, but they can use self-expressive phrases that they really agree with, that exemplifies their values. A lot of the older children, they like to wear the graphic tees that really share kind of how they're feeling, and they can do that as well with their mask. For younger children, they're going to need a little bit more modeling from you, parents, in terms of wearing the mask. So you may wear them around the house. You may even allow your younger children to wear them a little bit longer around the house if they are not wearing them. Also, you may want to put them on a mask, may want to make a paper mask or something and put it on their teddy bear or a doll. Because at those young children, they are what they see in their environment, they model. Okay, so those are just some tactics and some tips in terms of things that you can use. Now, in terms of that, even aside from preparing them preparing them for the COVID-19, we want to make sure that we are listening to our children during this time, whether they will be in the virtual, at home in the virtual setting, or when they come home from the in-person setting. We want to make sure that they're feeling heard at this point in time. And so we want to share the time, and we want to make sure we carve out time and space with our children. And when they share information with us, because we really want them to feel safe in coming to us in order so that we can provide that support, we want to listen and don't try to debate with them, right? Because again, their thoughts are not our thoughts. Again, their reasoning are not our level of reasoning. So we don't want to try to debate with them. Just hear them out, right? The same respect really as adults that we would like in terms of someone hearing our opinions. We want to give that to our child. Also, we want to get on their level. And I'm not only talking about mentally, I'm talking about physically. So you may want to set it up to where if your child is sitting down talking, it would be better received if you sit down and got on their level and talk to them. Children, one of the great things that you can do, I know that as adults, we like undivided attention. We like, for adults, we like that eye contact, and that's really important. It's good to work with our younger children on that, but I'm going to tell you one of the most effective ways that you can actually talk to a younger child and really, really kind of hone in on how they're feeling is if you join them in play. Join them in something that they are actually doing. If they're building blocks, get down, sit down on the floor with them if you can, and build blocks with them. If they're coloring, sit down and color with them. Color with them for a while, and then, start asking them questions, or let them lead the conversation, because now you're on their level, and sometimes they feel like you're on their turf, and they feel a little bit more comfortable with sharing their feelings and what they're thinking with you, right? You want to also accept that this is your child's reality, right? So again, not being able to see their friends, not being able for my son, not being able to not being able to go into the stores as much as we used to, so that he can go into the toy section. That's a really big deal for him. So we want to understand that big deals for them are different for us, and that is really hard. Listen, everybody, this thing is affecting everybody from A to Z. So everyone is trying our best. Everyone is hard for us all, and know that your feelings are your feelings and not necessarily your child's. And so you don't have to try to put on your feelings, or make your child, embrace your feelings. They may not even understand, how you may be feeling, juggling all of the aspects and the roles that you have. And then allow them to vent. Oftentimes with children, allowing them to vent about a particular situation in their own way, allowing them to vent actually helps to desensitize them the next time that they are faced with that particular situation. Now, a little bit about teenagers and adolescents. Understand that there's a lot, emotions are high in adolescents and teenagers. It's really, they are thinking oftentimes in absolutes. No, you won't let me do this. You are the meanest mom, meanest dad ever. It's absolute. And that is not just your child doing that as an adolescent. That is normal in terms of child development. I had a minor in child development. That is quite normal in child development, to where they are thinking kind of in absolutes. So again, you won't let them do this, so you are the worst parent ever. You let them do this, you are the best parent ever. There's no middle or gray area. So so again, it takes time to talk to them. It takes us being firm, with them, and letting them know that okay, you may not think I'm the best parent right now, but this is for your good. I'm making this decision, and this is how it's going to happen. A next one, in terms of building supportive relationships, make sure we are validating our children. Praise your child, right? Find something that they are doing good. Be intentional about trying to catch them doing something good, so that you can actually praise them, right? And when you praise them, don't just say good job, which that's good. If that's the start, that's good. But I really want you to be specific in your praise. I want you to be specific and tell them, I really like how you made your bed neatly. I really liked how you colored that page and how you used different colors. I really like how you really tried to color inside of the lines. I really like how you washed the dishes and you actually put them away. I really appreciate you for that. So validate your child. And I always say, a great approach to use is what I call the sandwich approach, right? Again, as parents, I know that it's very challenging, and we have to have those tough conversations with our children. We have to correct that behavior when we see it, but make sure we are using the sandwich approach if we can. Again, you have the bread for the sandwich approach, you have the meat, and then you have the bread on top, right? And so the bread is actually sweet bread is sweet, and we want to associate bread, those carbs, right? We want to associate that with making deposits into our children, right? So make sure we got two, and generally in sandwiches you have two pieces of bread and a piece of meat. So make sure that you are validating, you are praising your children more than you are actually withdrawing from them, more than you are actually correcting them, or feeling like, or for them it may feel like disciplining them. Definitely discipline them, how you do it, but a great rule of thumb is try to make sure that you are encouraging and praising them even more than you're making withdrawals. It's like an ATM or a bank account, right? You want to deposit more than you actually withdraw. So again, validating and praising your children, that's making deposits into them that will yield like long lasting, lifetime, positive changes. And when we talk about building nurturing environments, we want to make sure that we are extending grace to our children, and make sure that we're having a schedule, especially for those younger children where they are needing some consistency there. Make sure we have a schedule. And even for the older children, and with the older children, you may want to even allow them to have some autonomy, allow them to have some decision making, into their schedule and how it will go. If you're in the virtual world and they will be at home, it's really, really key to have those boundaries and set those schedules and protect that time, protect that instructional time. And we want to make sure that we set expectations. Now, parents, I really want to hone in here, and I'm talking to myself. Now, I know that in the springtime, when the virtual world actually happened, I was actually helping my son with his work, with his computer work. And, I found myself butting in sometimes saying, this, I know you know this, make sure you're paying attention, I know you know this. Listen, we want to make sure we set appropriate expectations, especially if your child, is at home and you're going to actually be there. You don't want them to be fearful of doing work in front of you. So give them grace, allow them to make the mistakes. Then you can talk to them about making those mistakes and how to correct them, right? But again, give them grace. And, we want to make sure we set appropriate expectations for them. And when we talk about setting boundaries in the environments, especially when you are in the virtual world at home, it's really important that you set boundaries and you separate school from home. Because prior to this, your children probably went in person, right? So school was at school and home was at home, although they may have had the homework. But now school and home is rolled up in one. So we don't want to overstimulate them, and we don't want to stress them out even more. So designate a space if you can. We have the schedule there. You've designated a time. If you can designate some space, this is where you will be doing your schoolwork. Even if it's at the kitchen table, this is where you'll be doing your schoolwork in this seat. And when you're finished, you'll put your things away and we'll eat dinner on the kitchen table. But this is where you will be doing your schoolwork. And if there is a separate area, allow the child to decorate and personalize it and make it their own. But you definitely want to have a designated workspace for them so that they can associate the rest of the house with being at home. Okay. So definitely in terms of building those nurturing environments. Now, as we talk about the needs of our children, we know that different age ranges, they need different things. So this is just briefly, just when we talk about the needs from ages 5 to 8, generally those are the early primary years. So they need a whole lot of routine and consistency, praise and attention, and then appropriate expectations. And of course, they need those motivations, right? They need those behavioral charts. They need those stickers. They need those motivations. But as you grow, as you get into the ages 9 to 11, in this age, there's a large gap in maturity levels among this group, right? So sometimes you have very mature 9-year-olds, and then you have 9-year-olds that are not so mature. So it's really about, in this age, knowing your child, understanding where they are, understanding their maturity level, but they need that communication. And I know that oftentimes we say, do as I say, because I said it and I'm the parent. And I totally understand that. But this day and time with these children, they actually, actually sharing with them, no, you cannot do that. And here's why: it's for your safety. I want to invite you to think outside the box in terms of sharing reasoning with them, because again, you are modeling. When you share with them your rules and why you have those in place, you're actually modeling for them, reasoning and logic that they will use later on in life to keep themselves safe, right? So don't be afraid don't think that you are explaining this rule to your child, that you are giving them the power as a parent. You're actually role modeling for them reasoning and how to think critically and logically, right? In this age, some of them, again, they may look like adults, but we want to make sure that we still have age appropriate child expectations on them. Hopping over to the ages 11 and 14. So this is a really big transition, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. So they really need a lot of assurance here. They need outlets, right? You may want to look at journaling, allowing them to journal. Some of them, they really at this point, they really pick up a hobby. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's an art. They really pick up a hobby. So allowing them to cultivate that hobby and really own that particular hobby. The hobby doesn't define them, helping them to understand that it doesn't define them, but allowing them to express themselves via that outlet to unplug. And then when you get to ages 14 and 18, this is where they're going to really test your limits, because they're building independence, and they're trying to shape their independence and what that actually looks like. There's a lot of emotions, even with ages 11 to 14, a lot of emotions, and mood swings are happening here. But it's really important for us as parents to start, again, modeling self-regulation, and helping them to become aware and understanding that asking for help is okay. And again, letting them know that you're there for help when they need it. A really quick grounding exercise as we talk about self-regulation. I like to use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise. And let me tell you, parents, this is great for children. It's great for children, whether they're young or older. I've used it with both, but it's also great for you as a parent. Recently I was in a store, and I was just a bit overwhelmed with everything as a parent, trying to grocery shop, trying to make sure I have what I need, trying to school shop, trying to make sure my child has what he needs. And it was just a little bit overwhelming. And so I was checking in with myself and practicing some self-awareness. And I was like, okay, I need to center myself. I need to stop for a moment. And, I know that things are going on around me externally, but I need to stop for a moment and just breathe, stop for a moment and ground myself. So one of the things you can do is, you can add, and you can play this game with your child, stop, freeze, look around the room, and five things name 5 things that you see. Now name 4 things that you feel. Maybe they're sitting in a chair and they feel the chair. Maybe they feel the shirt on them. Maybe they feel the watch on them. What do they feel? And then you can ask them, name 3 things you can hear. Like right now, I hear a bird chirping outside of my window. Of course, they may hear you talking. They may hear music in the background. Name 3 things you hear. Name 2 things that you smell. And then name one thing that you taste, or if you don't taste anything, what would you like to taste, right? Children are going to say gummies. They're going to probably say candy. For us, we'll say cupcakes or pie or something like that. But again, it just helps you to stop for a moment, distract from the current stressors, and to center and ground yourself. That's an awesome way to ground yourself. Also a way to ground yourself as well, to become mindful and to make sure that we're actually present. Is we're all washing our hands, right, with COVID-19. We're hand washing around here. We were hand washing before COVID-19, but we're doing it even more now. And so, we can talk about touch, right, in terms of grounding and or feeling. And as you are washing your hands, you can just, make sure that you're, even as parents, as you're washing your hands, is the water cold? Is it hot? Right? Do you need to, we do this automatically. Like if the water's not cold, we warm it up. But stop for a moment, and this water is cold, right? Let me warm it up. Let me make it warm. Another one is, when you're washing your hands, how does the soap feel on your hands? Do you feel like, do you still, and you may take a little while longer, right? Because we're washing to make sure that we are keeping germs at bay, but you may take a little while longer to feel how the soap feel it sudsing up on your hand, and then, feel how it feels to rinse off the soap. So again, just finding ways for us to make sure that we're in the room, that we are present, and we're not kind of on autopilot. And our children need help for us to help them to do that as well. For younger children, a way to help them to be grounded, playing Play-Doh, right? Again, the feel of Play-Doh, how squishy it is in the hand, that actually helps to relax them. A twofold way that one of the things I do with my son all the time is blowing bubbles, right? As a parent, blowing bubbles, it helps us to deep breathe, right? You can practice deep breathing exercise with bubbles. And then as children, they are swatting, they're exerting energy, they're swatting the bubbles, and exerting energy. One of the things you can do with older children is with older children, you really want to get into what they're into. You want to be curious and try to get into what they get into. So one exercise that you could do is you can actually, and this is a way to spend time with them, to actually get them to name their favorite song and to write down the lyrics to their favorite song, and tell them the clean version, but write down the lyrics to their favorite song. And then okay, have them to read the lyrics out to you. And then you guys could go to YouTube, or you can go on their app on their phone and actually listen to the song, or you can pull up the lyrics to the song on the web and actually match it up with your child's words to make sure to see where they thought they heard this, they thought they were hearing this in the song, but actually this word is used and what that means. And then you can also learn more about why your child actually likes that, why your child actually favors that song. It's really insightful and really, really helps you to get inside of and understand your older child's thoughts and where they are. This is a deep breathing exercise you can do with young children. And to be quite honest, it's easy for me as a parent to do as well. I want to invite you to do this deep breathing exercise with me, right? So if you utilize your palm, put your palm up there. And as you deep breathe, you want to, as you come up, you want to breathe in and then breathe out. You want to breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in and then breathe out, right? So every time you go up, you utilize this finger and you go up, you go up on a finger and you breathe in, but when you come down, you breathe out. It's a great tool to teach young children as well, but it's great to remember as well, because you always have your hands, right? And you can utilize your palm and your hands to remind you to breathe. Now, what deep breathing does is, especially when we are in a stressful situation, when we are in a challenging situation, when we're stressed, we know that generally our breathing is very, very fast. It's rapid and it's heavy, right? So we want in order to slow down, in order to activate and to take our bodies into a relaxation state, breathing in, doing deep breathing exercises actually helps you to do that. All right. So just remember, you can breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in as you come up the finger and breathe out as you come down. And then I know we have a lot of behavioral checklists for our children, but we want to make sure that as parents, we want to hold ourselves accountable too. So what are some ways that we can continue to support our children, right? Here's a behavioral checklist for us. Have you hugged your child for no apparent reason, just for them being, your child, just for them being themselves? When was the last time you helped your child clean their room or helped them actually with a chore? That actually means a lot to them. I asked my son, a couple of weeks ago, why do you love mommy? Because you helped me pick up my toys today. So again, when was the last time you took a deep breath? When they did that thing, when they did that thing, when was the last time you took a deep breath to calm yourself down? Have you played a game with your child recently? Have you showed grace to your child when your child got upset? So when was the last time you did something silly, made a silly face to make them laugh, right? So we have these behavioral expectations for our children, but we want to make sure as adults and parents, we want to make sure that we have a behavioral checklist as well. And then as parents, we have to make sure we practice self-care as well, right? We want to make sure those sleep and wake times, we want to try to keep them consistent, and we want to make sure we're getting good sleep, right? And in terms of good sleep, we want to make sure we're getting what's called the REM sleep. And that is, it takes about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours after you actually fall asleep. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to actually fall into the sleep cycle, to where your body is actually rejuvenating and replenishing itself and the energy that you put out that particular day. So you definitely want to make sure that you are consistent with getting, the appropriate amounts of hours of sleep. You want to make sure you're relaxing, exercising and eating right. And then what hobby do you have? What hobby that's not associated with work do you have? And actually getting down and playing with your children actually helps with that as well. Helps to distract you from the stressors of the day. So parent self-care is really important, because in order for us to make sure that we're hugging our children, make sure that we're there and we're providing supportive relationships and nurturing environments, right? We have to be healthy. We have to be practicing self-care. We have to be, full as well. We can't pour from an empty cup, even as parents. And I know that many of us, we have the superhero syndrome that we do it all, and we really do. But we have to make sure that we take time and that we carve out time for ourselves as well. Our children will thank us. Our children will thank us later. And the best thing that you can do for your child, which is why self-care is so important, is actually be there for them. Just be there. We talked about, today, some ways that you can be there for them, some ways that you can support them, but that's the best thing that you can actually do for them right now. And I want to ask, and you can utilize the chat, but I want to ask, what are some additional topics you'd like to learn more about to help support you as a parent? As a parent, juggling so many things, as a parent, parenting in the midst of a pandemic, what are some additional topics you would like to learn about? Self-care, positive reinforcement, additional self-regulation skills? Would you like to know more about resilience? Put those things or any additional ideas. I want to invite you to put those things and those ideas in the chat boxes and topics so that, you can advocate and, hopefully hear some more information about those additional topics. I know that we had, this again, I could share so much with you about child development and building resilience, but I really wanted to just paint the picture and to give you a framework or a way, a perspective to view things as you enter this year and this successful year. Even though it's going to be different, we are declaring that this is going to be a successful year this year, for your children. So again, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, for tuning in, and really, really caring about, building and fostering resilience in your child. This is my contact information. Again, I do trainings for several groups, but this is my contact information if you had any additional questions, and I do have social media pages as well. But again, I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I will turn it back over to Rochelle and Aaron.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hardy, for coming here and sharing with us on resilience and self-care and just so many helpful tips for parents. And if you guys will check the chat box, we have some community school supports and resources for transitioning, whether that's virtually or in the classroom. We have listed a website, and that is on the ACS website now. So and then if you guys have any questions or comments or topics you'd like covered, you can put that in the chat box as well. Thank you, Ms. Hardy.
Thank you. You guys have a great evening.